Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and we have seen Blizzard give us a little bit of data here around Season 1. So I want to talk about some of the things that stand out to me, and if this is a good thing or a bad thing about Season 1 and some of the data that we're seeing here and what we can extrapolate from this. So let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, the big one there on the top left, reaching level 100, 7,772 characters have done so. Now, if we look at some of the polling here on the channel, let me get my pen out right here. I hosted a poll a little bit ago at the end of opening weekend asking what level are you currently. It was at 3%, but it has scaled up to 5% as people, as votes kind of trickle in here over time of who is getting to level 70 plus. If I re-hosted this poll, it would probably be closer to 10% or so have gotten to level 70. So if you're in Season 1 and you are already level 70, you're probably in the top 10% or so of players in terms of leveling their seasonal character. So that means it is definitely a grind to get to level 100, and it ends up coming out to about 0.1% of the seasonal characters created have gotten to level 100. So definitely an accomplishment if you are one of the few that have gotten to level 100 already. But I did also want to talk about the seasonal characters created. I was trying to figure out how many this is, like how many different players, because obviously you have all sorts of people trying to get around the stash management storage issues in the game currently. So they may be doing a popular method in Diablo 2 called muling, where you create other characters to use them for their inventory as like a pseudo stash tab. And I guarantee you some of that's going on. Like I believe for me personally, I've only mained one class and one character so far in the season. I do want to try out more builds and more classes, but I have created 2 mules. So me personally, I've only actually played one character, which is a necromancer, but I've created 3 seasonal characters. I bet you on average, the average person has probably created like 2.5 if I had to put an average on it. So if we divide this 7 million by 2.5, we would probably get a pretty decent representation of what the actual player base is. So if I pull out the calculator and I take 7.1 million divided by 2.5, and we get about 2.8 million here for the players. So let me remove that. And I'm going to guess this is around 2.5 to 3 million players actually playing here in Season 1. So that's not just the PC audience. You've got the people that are playing on like the PlayStation and the Xbox and all of that across all of the different platforms for Season 1 here. But then another thing that I wanted to figure out was how good has Season 1 been at captivating the players and keeping them interested. So what I wanted to do was figure out how many hours has the average seasonal character played, and that's pretty difficult to find because Blizzard hasn't given us a total hours played within the player base. All they've done is given us a total mobs killed here, which is 74.6 billion. So what I did was I sat down and did a little bit of napkin math. I tried to calculate how many mobs do I kill per hour on average? How does that change when you're like blasting nightmare dungeons versus when you're early game? And I just did a kind of a bunch of random different number crunching. And what I came up with was the average seasonal character has been played about 5 to 20 hours, somewhere in there, like 10, 12, somewhere in there in terms of actual playtime on each seasonal character created over the course of 7 million characters. Now, that's a little bit low, in my opinion, as of them posting this. I would have hoped that number would be around like 25 or 30, but you got to remember, a lot of people are super busy and they have jobs and families, and like for every Uber grinder that's playing 16 hours a day, there's probably 100 people that are experiencing the game a little bit more casually and trying to fit it within their life. So it's not super surprising that the average playtime is probably around 10 to 12 hours as of them releasing this. And I don't know if that's a super good thing or a super bad thing. It would be really bad if the average playtime was like 3 or 4 hours. And then you'd be like, oof, people are really getting bored fast. But it's also not super encouraging. It'd be encouraging if it was like 25, 30 hours. And it would be discouraging if it was like 4 or 5 hours. So it's kind of within that window of what I would typically expect. Which I guess you could argue you would hope that we are overachieving because it's Season 1. It's supposed to be like the most hyped up time of the game. It's literally the first season. But I think it's probably going to be a little bit of the opposite for Diablo 4. I think we may see a similar journey to Diablo 3 in some regards, where Diablo 3 released, and once people dove into it, they didn't like the end game and the economy and all of that. But then when the game got its first expansion pack. That's when Diablo 3 really became the game it was supposed to be. It's unfortunate that it kind of looks like that might be something that happens here in Diablo 4. I think Diablo 4 is in a better state when it released than Diablo 3 was. Believe it or not, if you didn't play Diablo 3, it was awful on launch. So Diablo 4 is having a way better launch than Diablo 3 did, but I think it may be a similar story. I think Diablo 4 is going to need a little bit of time to bake in the oven and get some patches and get some balancing and get some things added to the end game and make some of the mechanics a little bit more filled out, like get some crafting and some of the elixir systems and some of the economy and the trading. Some of these systems need to get filled out a little bit more. The storage, obviously, for sure. So I do think that Diablo 4 is probably got another peak in it. I think that they're probably going to do like 2 different expansion packs. They've talked about expansions plural with an S. Now Diablo 3 only got 1 expansion, but I think Diablo 4 could get 2. So the absolute peak of Diablo 4 in terms of the size of the player base and the quality of the game will probably be when the first expansion pack comes out, and that will probably be at some point in late next year, if I had to guess. First expansion somewhere around November of 2024. But then recently, there's also been a lot of hype in the gaming community around Path of Exile 2. They have their Exile Con, and they were releasing some of the gameplay of Path of Exile 2, and I would say it was received way majorly favorable from the gaming community as a whole. And I think this is probably going to be a good thing for Diablo 4. I think more competition is going to make other developers do a better job. When you are fighting for market share and players have somewhere else to go, I think it's going to do nothing but motivate Diablo 4 to try and compete and be better and better and better. And then you also got to keep in mind, even if you are hyped up for Path of Exile, which I am as well, I'm definitely going to try Path of Exile 2. I mean, any big ARPG, I'm at least going to try it. I'm going to give it a go and see if I like it. But remember that Path of Exile 2 is probably still 2 years away. So we've got time for an expansion pack to come out for Diablo 4, as long as it happens next year. And it should be enough time for Diablo 4 to capture enough of the player base. But I agree that I don't want to wait till then. I want the game to be good right now. I don't want us to have to wait until Season 10 or an expansion pack. I want the game to be good right now, and I want these numbers to start trending in the overperforming category as opposed to like the it seems to be about what I expected or pretty normal. But I will say 7 million seasonal characters created is very good. And like I said, if we extrapolate that down, let's call it 2.5 million players. That is still very good for a season. How many players play a Path of Exile season? If I pull up their chart, it looks like they peaked at about 210,000 players on the last launch of a league. Right now, they're usually sitting at around 15,000 players a day. So 210,000 on the night of the season launch. That's gotta, and that's concurrent players. That's gotta mean at least 1 million seasonal characters created, right? So if Diablo 4 was at 2.5 million, I'm guessing this was pretty close to 1 million. So maybe 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, somewhere in there, as popular as Diablo 4 Season 1. That's a pretty big bummer for Season 1, I would think, for Diablo 4. You would think Season 1 of Diablo 4 should be like 10 times more popular as a Path of Exile season, because Path of Exile is a lot older. Maybe a Path of Exile 2 season should be a little bit more comparable to Diablo 4. But yeah, now that I think about it and look into it, that might be a little bit of an underperformance. And if I pull up the Google Trends here of Diablo 4, so when was the Path of Exile season? Maybe I didn't go back far enough here. Let me go to a full year. Where is the blip here? Yeah, I mean, Path of Exile, in terms of like internet velocity, it's not keeping up with Diablo 4 even right now. Diablo 4 is still about 25x on the web traffic velocity. So what that tells me is Path of Exile's seasons, or leagues they call them, they have a much more fervent, dedicated base to them, which doesn't surprise me, because Path of Exile and Diablo 2 have some similarities, and they're both very feverishly supported by the people who play them. And then Diablo 4 and Diablo 3 are a little bit more of a broader casual audience. So if I had to guess, I'd say right now Diablo 4 Season 1 is about 5 times as popular as a Path of Exile league in terms of like actual players and characters being created, and the web traffic is still about 25 times as popular. So Diablo 4 is still going to bring in a lot more casuals, but Path of Exile is going to have a little bit more of a dedicated core. So yeah, that's some of the thoughts that I was having around the numbers that Blizzard released and what some of this stuff is going to mean. Let me know what you think down below, and it would mean a lot to earn your sub today if you enjoy daily Diablo 4 content. I'll see you soon in the next video. Thanks. Peace.